A 330-foot mega tsunami wiped a village off the map in 2017. Eric the Red was an exiled murderer who named it Greenland to trick settlers into moving to a land that is 80% ice. This is Greenland, a place where the ground is older than oxygen, where 400-year-old sharks swim beneath the ice, and where a secret nuclear city sits frozen in time. You're about to hear 28 facts that sound like internet hoaxes, but every single one is real. Hidden canyons longer than the Grand Canyon, zombie viruses, and a $12 trillion treasure buried under the ice. Let's start with what's hiding 2 miles below the surface. In 2013, scientists using satellite radar discovered a canyon beneath Greenland's ice sheet. The canyon stretches 460 miles, longer than the Grand Canyon, and sits under 2 miles of ice. No human has ever seen it. The canyon was carved by rivers millions of years ago, before the ice arrived. Today, meltwater flows through the canyon, draining from the interior toward the coast. The ice sheet itself weighs 3 quadrillion tons. That weight is so immense, it has crushed the center of Greenland below sea level. If you removed the ice, the island's interior would form a massive bowl, with edges above the ocean and a center far beneath it. The pressure has compressed the bedrock over millennia. During the Cold War, the United States built a secret base inside the ice. Camp Century was constructed in 1959, and it was a nuclear-powered research station buried beneath the surface in northwest Greenland. The official story was scientific research. Project Iceworm was the real mission. It was a plan to store 600 ballistic missiles aimed at the Soviet Union. The base included tunnels, living quarters, a chapel, and a portable nuclear reactor. It operated for 7 years until the ice began to crush the tunnels. The military abandoned the site in 1967, leaving behind radioactive waste and diesel fuel. Greenland sharks live longer than any other vertebrate on Earth. Some swimming in Arctic waters today were alive before the Pilgrims landed in America. Scientists estimate their lifespan at 400 years or more, determined by radiocarbon dating the proteins in their eye lenses. The sharks grow slowly, about 1 centimeter per year, and do not reach sexual maturity until they are 150 years old. Most are blind, their eyes clouded by parasites, but they rely on smell to hunt seals and fish. In 2014, French scientists revived giant viruses that had been frozen in Siberian permafrost for 30,000 years. The viruses, harmless to humans, came back to life in the laboratory. Researchers warn that as Arctic ice melts, ancient pathogens could be released. Greenland's permafrost holds similar risks. Bacteria and viruses frozen during the last ice age remain preserved, and climate change is thawing ground that has been solid for millennia. Hey Carl, Greenland's national dish, is fermented shark meat so toxic it can kill you if prepared incorrectly. The Greenland shark's flesh contains high levels of urea and trimethylamine oxide that break down into ammonia. To make it edible, the meat is buried in gravel for months, then hung to dry for several more. The result is a pungent, ammonia-soaked delicacy that even locals describe as an acquired taste. Chef Anthony Bourdain called it the worst thing he had ever eaten. When you drop Greenland ice into a drink, it pops. The sound comes from pressurized air bubbles trapped in the ice for 100,000 years or more. As the ice melts, the bubbles burst, releasing ancient atmosphere. Scientists study these bubbles to understand past climates, measuring the composition of air from long before humans walked the Earth. Vikings settled Greenland around 985 AD, led by Eric the Red, after his exile from Iceland for murder. At its peak, the Norse population reached 5,000, spread across 2 main settlements. They built churches, traded walrus ivory, and raised livestock. Then in the 1400s, they vanished. There are no mass graves, no evidence of plague, and no signs of violent conflict. Theories range from climate change and failing crops to economic collapse and conflict with the Inuit. The last written record is a wedding in 1408. After that, silence. The Whiskey War lasted 38 years. Canada and Greenland both claimed Hans Island, a tiny uninhabited rock between Greenland and Ellesmere Island. In 1984, Canada planted a flag and left a bottle of Canadian whiskey. Greenland responded by planting its own flag and leaving a bottle of schnapps. For decades, the two nations took turns visiting the island, replacing each other's flags and leaving alcohol. The dispute was settled in 2022 when both countries agreed to split the island down the middle. There are 17 towns in Greenland, and no roads connect any of them. To travel from one town to another, you must fly or take a boat. In winter, some communities use dog sleds or snowmobiles across the ice. But there are no highways, no bridges, and no overland routes. The terrain is too rugged, the distances too vast, and the population too small to justify the cost. In some Greenlandic towns, it is illegal to leave your house without a rifle. Polar bears wander into settlements, especially in the northeast, and they are dangerous. The law exists for safety. Residents are trained to carry firearms and to use them if necessary. Each year, a handful of polar bears are shot in self-defense. Soccer fields in Greenland are made of crushed rock or sand. There is no soil. The permafrost and bedrock make grass fields impossible. Players wear long sleeves and padding because sliding tackles shred skin. The ball bounces unpredictably, and games are played in the short summer months when the ground thaws enough to be playable. In the northernmost parts of Greenland, the sun does not set for 120 days. From late April to late August, the sky remains bright around the clock. The phenomenon known as the midnight sun occurs because of the Earth's tilt. Residents adapt by covering windows with blackout curtains and by keeping irregular sleep schedules. The opposite occurs in winter, when the sun does not rise for months. Greenland holds one of the world's largest deposits of rare earth minerals, essential for every electric vehicle battery, smartphone, and wind turbine. Chinese companies have shown interest, and Greenland's government has debated mining contracts worth billions. The deposits include neodymium, praseodymium, dysprosium, and dysprosium, all critical for green technology. As the ice retreats, it reveals massive veins of rubies and pink sapphires. In 2016, a ruby mine opened near Nuuk, producing some of the finest stones in the world. The gems are marketed as Greenlandic rubies, and they fetch high prices in international markets. The mine employs local workers and has become a symbol of Greenland's economic potential. Estimates suggest Greenland's untapped mineral wealth could be worth over $12 trillion. The figure includes rare earths, rubies, gold, zinc, and uranium. The challenge is extraction. The climate is harsh, the infrastructure is minimal, and environmental concerns are significant. Greenland sits on one of the world's largest undeveloped uranium deposits. The Kvanefjeld mine in the south contains enough uranium to power reactors for decades. In 2021, Greenland's parliament banned uranium mining after a national election where the issue dominated. Environmental groups celebrated, while mining companies and foreign governments expressed frustration. Northeast Greenland National Park is the largest national park on Earth, covering 375,000 square miles. That is larger than France and Spain combined. The park has zero permanent human population. Only a handful of military personnel and scientists live there temporarily. The park is home to musk oxen, Arctic wolves, and polar bears. Despite the ice, South Greenland has a microclimate where farmers grow potatoes and raise sheep. The Vikings discovered this during the medieval warm period, and modern farmers have returned to the practice. The town of Igaliku sits in a green valley with grazing land and vegetable gardens. Kaffeklubben Island is the northernmost permanent point of land on Earth. It sits 440 miles from the North Pole, a tiny gravel bank exposed above the Arctic Ocean. Explorers confirmed its status in 1921. The island is uninhabited, visited only by researchers and adventurers. If Greenland's ice sheet melts completely, sea levels will rise 24 feet. Cities like London, New York, Miami, and Shanghai would flood. Hundreds of millions of people would be displaced. The ice sheet contains 10% of the world's fresh water. Scientists say full melting would take centuries, but the process has already begun. Greenland loses about 280 billion tons of ice per year. In 2006, a lake in West Greenland drained completely in 2 hours. The lake covered 2 square miles, and it held the equivalent of 2,000 Olympic swimming pools. Meltwater carved a crack in the ice beneath the lake. the entire body of water vanished into the glacier below. The Isua Belt in southwest Greenland contains rocks that are 3.8 billion years old. These are among the oldest rocks on Earth, formed before the planet had oxygen in its atmosphere. The rocks hold clues to early life, and some scientists claim to have found fossilized microbes. In 2007, scientists extracted 2 million-year-old DNA from sediment cores in northern Greenland. The DNA came from plants and insects, proving that Greenland was once a lush forest. Mastodons, giant deer, and ancient trees thrived in a landscape unrecognizable today. The village of Igaliku is built from red stones taken from a 12th century Viking cathedral. The cathedral, called Gardar, was the seat of the Bishop of Greenland. After the Vikings vanished, the ruins remained. Modern residents have repurposed the stones, building homes and walls from the same red sandstone. Greenland's strangest truths hide under miles of ice, in 400-year-old sharks, and in a past nobody can explain. This is a place where the ground is older than oxygen, where Vikings vanished, and where a nuclear city sits frozen in time. The ice is melting, revealing rubies and ancient forests, and the world is watching. If you want more shocking facts from places that sound fake, subscribe now. Drop your favorite Greenland fact in the comments. Watch the Iceland episode next to see what happens when a country sits on top of a volcano.